Oh, darling, I'm at Monaco in the 60s, and my heart's racing faster than these Formula One cars.
Three cars collided in a mangled heap. Says it metal twisted like a nightmare.
Machines
10,
screaming
15
through the
cars
streets
will
at
drive
150
every
miles
year.
an
Every
hour.
time a driver
Watching
screaming,
those cars
we didn't just
scream
watch
still
them, we
drift
studied
firemen
to the
150
instruments.
miles an hour.
We figured out
Metal
why and
twisted
But
like
fixed
something's
it.
wrong.
Look at the numbers.
I feel it.
As the index dropped, so did
I have experienced years of mistakes.
It's no coincidence that those wrecks were our
In those flimsy coffins on wheels. One wrong move, and poof, they're gone.
People say I'm crazy for driving this thing. And maybe I am. No seatbelts, no roll cage, no fancy fire suit. Just me, a wool shirt, a leather helmet, and a machine that'll kill me if I make one mistake. The only thing between me and death is how fast I can think. And how hard I can hang on. But I ain't out here for safety. I'm here for speed. When the flag drops and she jumps off the line, that engine roars like it's tearing a hole through the world. And for a few beautiful laps, I feel alive in a way no one else ever will. It ain't about money. Lord knows there's not much of that. And it ain't about fame. Though the crowds sure make you feel like a god for a minute or two. No, it's something deeper. A pull. Like the faster I go, the closer I get to something no one else can see. But I ain't stupid. I know what could happen. One loose wheel, one gust of wind, one tiny crack in the steering arm, and I don't go home. During practice in 1953, Chet Miller hit turn 1 at over 140 miles per hour. In an instant, his front suspension failed. The car veered violently into the outside wall. It was a catastrophic impact. Metal twisted like paper, fuel hissed, tires flew. The cockpit offered no protection. There were no seatbelts, no head restraints, no crash walls. Only thin leather and steel separating bone from concrete. Chet Miller died instantly. Massive trauma to the head as his neck was snapped in two. A piston rod from his engine was embedded in his chest. Chet Miller paid the ultimate price for that altered state of consciousness. Was it worth it? You bet it was.
Race car drivers chase speed like it's oxygen, the humans who'll get back in the car, no matter what happened last time. But what's clear is that they're different from the rest of us. Biologically, psychologically, environmentally, these things combine, and when they do, you get someone who doesn't just tolerate risk, they need it. Some drivers are wired in a way that demands more stimulation. Chemically, they might need more danger just to feel the same level of pleasure you or I get from a walk in the park. Their brains need more to light up. In psychology, we talk about 3 systems: threat, pleasure, and attachment. Most people are wired to avoid danger. But these guys? Their pleasure system wins. Being alive isn't enough. That's not just personality. That's brain chemistry. Serotonin, dopamine, all of it. These are people who are bored by safety, and in the right culture, in the right tribe, that gets celebrated.
Bill Vukovich, the two-time and reigning Indianapolis 500 champion, was leading the race when a freak accident happened on the track. Vukovich's car ran over the right rear tire of Roger Boyd's already disabled car, sending both into the air. Vukovich's car flipped upside down and smashed Bill's head into the concrete. Needless to say, Vukovich died instantly with his brains and skull scattered on the track. No one need feel sorry for Vuk. Those last few seconds of his life were probably his most memorable.
At 160 miles per hour, fear doesn't stand a chance if the mind is full. I'm not fearless by nature. I'm fearless by design. First, I know this machine. Every bolt, every sound. It's not just a car, it's part of me. When something's wrong, I feel it before it fails. Second, I have experience. Years of mistakes, close calls, and victories live in my bones. Each lap is guided by everything that came before. Third, I carry unshakable confidence. Not arrogance, confidence earned through sweat, instinct, and precision. When knowledge, experience, and confidence fill my brain, there's no space left for fear. But let one slip, and fear rushes in. And at 160 miles per hour, fear can be fatal, so let's not go there.
We've just finished this beautiful 1960s Formula One machine, a speed-crazed beast built to cheat death. The engine's our fire-breathing core, a V8 churning out 200 horsepower, which will scream through Monaco's lethal twists at 150 miles an hour. It's a temperamental beast. One misfire and our driver could end up in the wall or even in the water. Suspension, double wishbones, tuned tight for razor-sharp corners, but it's a brutal trade-off. Every jolt's a bone crusher. One bad bump, and a snapped link sends you careening into chaos. Driver controls, a skinny wheel, a clunky stick shift, and pedals so tight it's like threading a needle at full speed. Miss a shift, and you're kissing a barrier. The chassis is aluminum, light as a feather to shave seconds, but it folds like paper in a wreck. Tires, skinny, slick, and barely clinging to the track, burning out mid-race. The fuel tank? A flimsy metal bomb packed with 30 gallons of volatile juice, ready to ignite at the slightest hit. Brakes? Basic discs that fade under pressure, leaving you praying they'll hold. I designed these beauties with more speed than ever before, but personally, I wouldn't risk my life driving it. We leave that to our drivers who constantly complain about how slow these cars are.
Racing at over 200 miles per hour isn't just physical. It demands a specific kind of mental strength. Not everyone has it. But for those who do, it's something they've practiced, cultivated, and lived since they were young. They grew up surrounded by speed. It became normal, controlled, safe, even, at least to them. You see, the way we think changes the way we feel. Race car drivers, especially the best, train their minds just like they train their bodies. They focus on what they know, their machines, their competitors, their instincts. They've logged thousands of laps, and with repetition, anxiety fades. What's left is control. It's not that fear disappears, it just gets outshouted, because if your thoughts wander to what could go wrong, to what's at stake, you're done. Fear creeps in, muscles tense, performance drops. One wrong move at those speeds, it's over. That's why mental discipline matters. Just like a gymnast must forget the fall, a driver has to erase the crash. And that kind of mental toughness, it's learned. Over time, in communities that live and breathe this world. If you looked at their brains, the neural networks, they'd be different, literally. Shaped by years of repetition, focus, and internal dialogue that tells them, you've got this, stay sharp, stay calm, go fast. Their performance starts not with the engine, but with a thought. One that says, "You belong here." And the right thought, at the right moment, makes all the difference between a lap and a legacy.
I'm Dr. Stephen Olvey, the first physician ever assigned full-time to the track at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Back then, there were no trauma teams, no medical plans, no safety nets. If a driver got hurt, it was chaos. I was thrown into a world where men were flying 200 miles an hour, with almost no protection, and no one really knew what to do when something went wrong. I didn't have a manual. I had instincts and mistakes. The truth is, when I first started, I didn't know how to save these drivers, but I knew I had to try. We lost racers, brilliant, talented young men, because we simply didn't understand what was happening inside their skulls. A crash would look minor, but hours later, they'd slip into unconsciousness and die. We didn't know about brain bleeds. We didn't know how critical those first few minutes were. So I went to the hospitals. I watched emergency physicians work trauma cases in the ER. I asked questions. I studied how to stabilize spinal injuries, manage airway obstruction, read signs of head trauma. Then we brought that knowledge back to the track. We turned a sport with zero medical structure into a rolling trauma laboratory. We practiced like a pit crew. Airway, circulation, spine, every move rehearsed. We learned how to keep a driver alive for the short, critical journey to the hospital, and that was a breakthrough.
May 30th, 1964. Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was the second lap of the race when rookie Dave McDonald lost control coming out of turn 4. His car, a magnesium-bodied Thompson with a full load of fuel, snapped sideways, struck the inside wall, and burst into flames. 45 gallons of gasoline ignited instantly, turning the car into a fireball. As it ricocheted back onto the track, the flames spread across the racing line. Visibility vanished. Panic followed. Veteran driver Eddie Sachs, charging at over 140 miles per hour, slammed directly into the burning wreckage. The impact crushed the front of his car and ruptured its fuel tank. A second explosion engulfed both men. McDonald, trapped in his seat, suffered massive burns over most of his body and severe smoke inhalation. He was pulled from the wreckage but died hours later in the hospital. Sachs died instantly, his skull fractured from the collision, his body consumed by fire, still strapped inside the cockpit. The crash was one of the deadliest in Indy 500 history.
For thousands of years, humans have been offering up their bodies to the altar of conflict, generation after generation, putting themselves in harm's way, mostly through war. And whether they knew it or not, every wound, every injury was a revelation. Because when the body breaks, it opens. And when it opens, we see what's inside. But for most of human history, we didn't understand what we were looking at. The heart, the brain, the lungs, they were mysteries wrapped in blood. It wasn't until the last 500 years that human awareness turned inward. We began to investigate, not just how we die, but how we live. Anatomy became inquiry. Curiosity met cadaver. And then came the Civil War. It was the largest unintentional medical laboratory the world had ever seen. Tens of thousands of wounded soldiers, broken, bleeding, and still alive, arrived in makeshift field hospitals. For young surgeons, it was a tidal wave of trauma and a terrible opportunity. With 50 men on stretchers waiting for surgery, these battlefield doctors had no time for textbooks. They had patients, endless patients, and they experimented. They amputated, probed, stitched, drained, and documented. They failed. They learned. And they changed the very nature of surgery. By 1868, just 3 years after the war ended, the practice of surgery had evolved more in that short span than in the previous century. The war was brutal, but it forced us to see the human body not just as a weapon, but as a system we could study, heal, and maybe one day save. In the grand arc of history, war has always revealed the body, but it took modern medicine to understand what it was saying. On the track, it's also a war between the human body and physics. The racing industry has learned the hard way that humanity will never beat physics. Humans can only coexist with the forces of nature. Once physics is respected and precautions taken, then humans can play their game with speed and now live to tell about it.
I'll never forget that 1960 NASCAR race. 3 cars collided in a mangled heap, metal twisted like a nightmare. One driver was trapped inside, hurt bad, screaming for help. Those track firemen fought with everything they had, pry bars, sheer muscle, but that wreckage wouldn't budge. Desperate, they grabbed their electric saw, sparks flying as they cut. Then the worst happened. The gas tank was leaking, and those sparks ignited a fire. Flames roared, swallowing the car, and they were helpless. The driver's cries for help can still be heard. In the stands, George Hurst, an engineer, watched this disaster unfold. He knew there had to be a better way. Over the next few months, he poured his genius into creating the jaws of life. This hydraulic beast that rips metal apart without a single spark. This tool has saved over 30,000 lives to date, and it's on every fire truck in the country. From that racetrack tragedy came a lifeline we firefighters swear by, saving people from every wreck imaginable.
I'm an Italian race car maker, and my machines, mio Deo, their poetry in motion, forged in fire and steel. In the 1960s, my Formula One cars were beasts, their V12 engines howling with 250 horsepower, tearing down straights at 160 miles an hour, maybe more on tracks like Monza. Every curve, every gear shift was a dance with destiny. We crafted these cars to fly, lightweight chassis, slick tires gripping like gloves, suspensions tuned to hug the asphalt. They weren't just fast, they were lightning, outrunning the wind itself. But speed came at a price. These cars, they pushed beyond what any man could tame. I used to race, feeling the pulse of my own creations, the roar of the engine in my bones. But as we pushed the limits, 170, 180 miles an hour, I saw the truth. These machines were too wild, too unforgiving. A missed corner, a split-second lapse, and you'd be a fireball, a memory. I knew if I kept racing, I'd die. My heart screamed to stay on the track, but my head said, basta. I walked away, not out of fear, but to live, to keep building these magnificent beasts for braver souls. My cars still race, but I watch from the sidelines, knowing I crafted legends that outran even me.
Oh, darling, I'm at Monaco in the 60s, and my heart's racing faster than these Formula One cars. The Grand Prix is pure magic. Those sleek machines screaming through the streets at 150 miles an hour, engines roaring like wild beasts. And the drivers? These young, gorgeous boys, tanned, fearless, with that devil-may-care grin. I'm absolutely mad for them. They're out there dancing with death, flirting with every hairpin turn, risking it all in those flimsy coffins on wheels. One wrong move, and poof, they're gone. But that danger? It's electric, it's alive, and I'm hooked. The parties? Oh, they're divine. Glittering nights with champagne flowing, surrounded by the most beautiful people. Drivers, playboys, starlets, all sparkling under the Riviera lights. I'm right in the thick of it, brushing elbows with men who stare down death and wink at it. Being so close to these gods who risk everything. It's thrilling. It's intoxicating. I live for the roar of the crowd, the scent of burning rubber, and those heart-stopping moments when the track explodes with danger. This is my world, and I'm never leaving this dazzling, death-defying party.
Yeehaw. I'm just a good old Southern boy, and there ain't nothing like NASCAR to get my blood pumping. Every Sunday, me and my buddies pile into my Chevy truck. Man, I drive that thing near as fast as them race cars, tearing down the highway at 80, maybe 90, whooping and hollering all the way to the track. Them stock cars, roaring at 150 miles an hour, dodging wrecks on them tight ovals. Brother, that's living. We leave the wives at home, 'cause, well, you never know who you might run into at the races, if you catch my drift. It's just us boys, swapping stories, sipping cold ones, and cheering for them NASCAR drivers. Real men, every one of them. Ain't nobody tougher than a fella who can sling a car around Daytona, inches from disaster, and come out grinning. Those drivers, like Fireball Roberts or Cale Yarborough, they're the kind of heroes I want my sons looking up to. I tell them, boys, you want to be a man. Drive hard, live bold, and never back down. NASCAR's where dreams meet guts, and I'm proud to be in them stands, living the wild life.
Back in the 60s, I dove headfirst into the wild world of IndyCar racing, a brutal proving ground where crashes at 200 miles an hour taught us how to save lives. Every time a driver died, we didn't just mourn, we studied, we innovated. We figured out why and fixed it. Look at the numbers. As Indy deaths dropped, so did highway fatalities, lockstep, like a mirror. It's no coincidence. Those wrecks were our classroom, teaching us lessons we took to the streets. At Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it wasn't just me. I worked with Dr. Terry Trammell, a genius orthopedic surgeon, plus a crew of 6 or 7 nurses and eager medical students, all there for the chaotic month of May. We drilled for every nightmare, internal injuries, fires, deaths on the track. We asked, what if this happens? What if that? When a driver came in with a mangled leg, looking like it was lost, we leaned on lessons from Vietnam vets, doctors who'd seen worse in war. They showed us how to save that leg, and we built on it. Over decades, we kept pushing. When drivers started getting hit by flying tires, we fought for the halo, that big metal guard above their heads. Dr. Trammell redesigned seats and chest protection to shield their bodies from crushing impacts. Every year, the cars got safer, the drivers tougher to kill. Back in the 60s, it was trial and error, just me and a few others piecing it together. But those early days at Indy, those crashes, they rewrote the rules of emergency medicine, saving thousands on tracks and highways alike. That's the legacy we built, one life at a time.
In motorsports, we obsess over the car. Every bolt, every data point, every sensor calibrated to perfection. But what about the driver? What about the machine behind the machine? Why aren't we monitoring the most complex system on the track? It's not the engine that pulls a car out of a spin at 230 miles per hour. It's the driver's mind, their heart rate, their arousal response, that subtle dance between tension and flow. Because inside every elite performer, every gymnast, every free throw shooter, every race car driver, there's a delicate calibration. Too much tension, and performance collapses. Too little, and you lose your edge. The goal is flow, that elusive state where thought and action blur, where the body responds faster than the brain can keep up, where the athlete isn't thinking, they're just doing. And here's the catch. Most athletes never learn how to enter it on command. Some stumble into it, others train for it. But few really understand it. Race car drivers, the good ones, they live there. They've practiced their internal dialogue the way a pianist practices scales. They know their machines, their competition, the rules of physics and risk. Their neural networks aren't built overnight. They're forged through repetition, immersion, and failure. And that failure, that's the key. See, elite performers don't fear failure. They mine it. As psychologist Carol Dweck showed, Those who see mistakes as information, not identity, are the ones who keep growing, the ones who become world.
As a track doctor, I've seen what a race car crash can do to the human body, especially the brain and spinal cord. In the 1960s, Formula One and IndyCar drivers hit 150 to 180 miles an hour in flimsy machines, no roll cages, no mercy. A crash was like a sledgehammer to the skull. The brain slams against the inside of the cranium, bruising, swelling, or bleeding. Traumatic brain injury in an instant. Concussions were common. Severe ones left drivers dazed, vomiting, or unconscious. Worse, a high-speed impact could shear delicate neural connections, causing permanent memory loss or personality changes. Fatal hemorrhages weren't rare. Blood pooling in the brain could kill in minutes. The spinal cord, just as vulnerable. A head-on wreck or rollover could snap the neck or crush vertebrae, severing the cord's fragile nerves. That meant paralysis, partial or total, or death if the injury hit high enough to stop breathing. Every crash was a roll of the dice. A driver could walk away or never move again. On the track, we had to act fast to spot brain injuries. In the 60s and 70s, it was crude but urgent. We'd check their eyes, unequal pupils, or sluggish response to light-screamed brain trauma. We'd ask simple questions. What's your name? Where are you? If they couldn't answer or slurred words, we knew it was bad. Every second counted, and every crash taught us how to save the next driver's brain, their spine, their life.
And let me tell you, a big race like Indy, Daytona, or Monaco is pure gold. Millions are glued to their screens. 10, 15 million viewers and growing every year. Watching those cars scream at 150 to 240 miles an hour, engines roaring, tires screeching. Every lap's a cash machine. Commercials for beer, cars, cigarettes, raking in millions per race. The networks are swimming in it. Why? Because folks can't look away from those wild, heart-stopping crashes, metal twisting, cars flipping, sparks flying. It's a spectacle, a thrill like nothing else. But here's the rub. They love the wrecks, not the funerals. Nobody wants to see a driver die. Too much blood, and the public turns sour. We learned that the hard way, so we hauled in the car owners, track bosses, anybody with a stake, and laid it out. Figure out how to stop the dying, or this blood sport's done. No more big races, no more big money. We pushed for stronger cars, better barriers, anything to keep drivers alive without killing the show. The crashes, keep them spectacular. The deaths, cut them out. That's the deal to keep this cash cow racing full throttle.
The first chapter of One Step Ahead rips the curtain off a wild truth that burns hotter than a 1960s racetrack. Some folks are born with brains that scream for chaos, craving a heart-pounding 200-plus mile an hour rush to feel truly alive. In the 60s, Indy, Formula One, and NASCAR drivers strapped into flimsy, fire-prone death machines, their minds wired for extreme stimulation. One slip on those screaming tires, one spark from a busted fuel tank, and it's a blazing wreck, bones shattered, lives snuffed out in a heartbeat. The drivers didn't care. They needed to go fast. Society is hooked on their madness. Crowds packed the stands, eyes wide, hearts racing, feasting on the chaos of metal-crunching crashes. We crave the spectacle, but we slam the brakes at death. A bloody nose, bring it on. A coffin, unacceptable. Racing was and is a cash cow, spewing millions from rabid fans and sponsors, and that money roared one command: keep those drivers breathing. So the medical world rolled up its sleeves, pulling off miracles to drag these daredevils from fiery wrecks to trauma centers, still kicking. Chapter 1 lays bare how a handful of thrill-chasing souls sparked a revolution that redefined saving lives, one bone-rattling crash at a time. Chapter 2 unveils the real game changer. Those trackside wizards didn't just save drivers, they forged the 911 system that rescues us all today. Every time you dial for help, tip your hat to those dead and injured race drivers. Also, the race cars are so incredibly safe now, no one even gets a hangnail. Chapter 3 takes us to the spark that lit this fire. Roberto Guerrero's 220-mile-per-hour crash, a 17-day coma, and the genius of track doctors who snatched him from death's grip, proving the medical miracles born on the asphalt.